Hello again, YouTube, and welcome back to Emergency Podcast. And there's been quite a few emergencies this week. But anyway, I'm Ian Bailey.
And I'm Nigel Goodwin.
We've got to remember to keep saying that at the beginning of every one, because I think there were a couple right at the very beginning for the two people who watched the first ones where we didn't actually bother to say who we are. But I think the people we're going to talk about on today's show don't really need any introduction. Well, maybe one of them.
No, not at all, really. And it's so funny because each time we do one of these, we get to the end and we say, right, next time we're definitely going to talk about this. And I'd actually the other day, I made some notes about kind of the NHS and how to rebuild the NHS or build a new NHS and stuff. But that's going on hold right now because there's genuine emergencies that have to be talked about. And I don't know where you want to start, Ian. I mean, it's been, never mind it's been a week, it's been a 24 hours, right?
Well,
it's been a 24 hours.
It's been so we're recording this on Friday evening, and yesterday evening was one of those bits where you're sat doom scrolling through Twitter and a couple of other news stories kind of going, he said what? And they said what? And it was the big, exciting, still exploding as we speak story is the falling out between Elon Musk and Donald Trump, where it seemed obvious from the very beginning that they were likely to fall out. And I know some other podcasters, Anthony Scaramucci, had said very clearly, it's not going to last. They're going to end up hating each other. And here we are. But what a 24 hours we've had. And it's not finished.
No, it's nothing is ever finished. Except for Donald Trump's kind of policy plans. They tend to get forgotten after a little bit of time. But I'm actually thinking of writing a book, Ian, which is going to be about why authoritarians can't make friends. Because they can't keep friends. It's insane how obvious it was that this was going to happen. And I think I know we chatted back in certainly back in January, back in the last year as well. And I know lots of us were saying effectively taking bets on, well, how long will it last? But even I've been shocked, like genuinely shocked at just the level of falling out and how two grown men will throw these insults at each other without a care for the fact that the entire world is watching.
Got me yesterday. So they'd had a bit of Elon Musk had to leave US employment. He wasn't working for the government, but he had to leave the role because otherwise they'd actually have to start vetting him and all of that kind of stuff. But even as he was on his way out, he's starting to say stuff about Trump's big, beautiful bill, the one that was so amazing and very, very robust and very upright and proper that Congress people weren't allowed to read it. There are very clear rules that say you have to have a notice period to read bills, which was voted to scrap, and then they literally had nothing. So you've already had people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's a bit outspoken on the right, shall we say, and she said had she read the thing she wouldn't have voted for it, because now she's read it, she's gone, gosh, what's this? So Musk is like, this bill is a disaster because it slams another few trillion onto the US debt in paying for these tax cuts. Obviously Trump, who's still trying to get it through the Senate, has reacted quite badly to that. And I think that's the start of it snowballing into, well, I mean, you were watching bits of this last night as well as I was. Do you want to pull some highlights out, or do you want me to do it?
No, I'm happy to pull some. I mean, first of all, just to say, I think some of the look, it was always a match of convenience, right? It was a match of convenience to get him elected. Yeah. They don't come from the same political spheres, really. They just coalesced for a period. But I actually think where it really started is probably around the tariffs, because if you go back a few weeks, Musk was quite critical of introducing tariffs, because of course the tariffs were inevitably hurting his own businesses, right? The businesses he has a lot of vested interest in. But yesterday, and I forget the order in which things happened, but obviously he had left. But some of the back and forth, and of course this is all going on between the two main parties' social media platforms that belong to them as well.
Yes.
So it's on X with Elon and it's Truth Social with Donald. And there was a piece where Elon Musk attacks the bill, this massive bill that they're trying to get through, goes back and says that he's going to cancel a whole load of Musk contracts. And he actually phrased it by saying, the best way to save money, which was effectively the thing that Elon Musk was supposed to be doing with Doge, would be to just cancel loads of Elon Musk's contracts and the subsidies that he gets for EV and everything else, which, I mean, that in itself is like, well, okay, calm down for a moment. Then Musk comes back by saying, I'm going to cancel or decommission the Dragon spacecraft, which is the manned spacecraft that NASA uses quite a bit.
Well, it's the only way that NASA can get astronauts to the ISS without sticking them on a Soyuz rocket in Russia.
Yeah, and if you haven't been paying attention, relations with Russia right now are
not great.
Tricky to say the least. And so it went there. Then Trump goes back again, saying that Musk should have quit ages ago. It's like he's a joke and all this kind of stuff. And then Musk hit him hard with the Epstein bit, where he basically tried to close off the conversation by saying the reason that the Epstein files, the Jeffrey Epstein stuff, has not been released by the Justice Department in America is because Donald Trump's name is in there. Now, again, we'll let people make up their mind about whether that might be true or not.
Let's be very clear. We're not making or repeating any allegations. These are in the public sphere and in the public interest, Mr. Lawyer, sir.
This is effectively what other people have said on the internet to their followers of hundreds of millions of people, and it calmed down overnight. To an extent where everyone just kind of took on the shock of it all. Newspapers started to print and everything else. Today, it sounds like Musk has tried to, from what I'm reading, to reconcile or try to get in touch, but Donald Trump is having none of it and is very much saying, see you later to a certain extent. Where this goes from here, I have no idea. I think I was shocked but not surprised, if that's the right way of putting it. I mean, I think we all knew it was going to happen. I was just shocked at just the sheer pettiness.
It's petty. It's petty. It is beyond a joke. These are supposed to be super serious, very senior people, and I mean, come on. But the bit that just absolutely blew my mind, right, was you had the escalation of threats. And look, the Crew Dragon thing, right, is really big. But Musk being told we're going to cut all of your subsidies, well, that effectively is paying for Crew Dragon. There was, and I'm still going to keep referring to it as Twitter and tweets, right? Because X.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I think that's the first time I've ever referred to it as X, which is like
it's exactly. But the there's all of these brilliant memes being posted, and the one that I'm actually having to my wife's got friends in America, and she's taking screenshots off my phone sent to her friends. But the one that got me almost on the floor laughing was. He says, right, that's it. We're going to decommission Crew Dragon. And the meme was Tom Hanks in the film Apollo 13 inside the Apollo spacecraft looking horrified. And it was NASA astronauts right now realizing their next ride is on Boeing's Starliner.
Yeah, no, and let's face it, nobody wants to fly on a Boeing spacecraft right now.
Exactly. So, but it's this, it escalates and escalates. And then, as you say, he comes up with the Epstein thing. But here's the question. So Elon throws this down as I've got the truth, right? And I'm gonna and he's like, mark my words, this is gonna be his big question. Did you already know this? Because if you did already know this, why did you then spend how many $1 billion getting the guy elected?
Getting him elected. I mean, he's been on.
Why
yeah, I mean, he's been on overnight. But part of what he was pushing was Trump only became president because of me, because of Elon Musk. Which is probably true because of the amount of money he put in, and also the amount of airtime through Twitter, being able to continually push the message of vote Donald Trump. But I think, the big bomb that he's dropping, the Epstein thing. I mean, I've got to be honest with you. The other question I would have is it actually that big news? I mean, it would be in normal times with a president. It would. But Donald Trump kind of has gone past all of that. I mean, he is a convicted felon right now. So the rules really don't apply to a certain extent.
It's also that the MAGA crowd who've been cheering Trump, obviously, and cheering Musk, almost don't know how to react. And some of them have been really, really angry about it, and almost like, how dare you turn on our guy? He's a real patriot and you're not, or whatever. But you've also got some of them going on about the Epstein allegations, saying, hang on. We know he was on the plane. We already knew that. What's your point? And it's like, well, his point is not talking about that. He's talking about the stuff that hasn't been released.
Exactly.
I just look at it as, right, boys, right, hey, guys, get a room. Right, get a room, right? A nice big manly hug and maybe a bit more, right? That'll calm everything right down and get sorted as to what's going where and all the rest of it. But I mean, please, it's hilarious. What I think we're going to get to, it's very possible that there's some kind of reconciliation, but it's also hugely possible that Elon Musk now goes onto the algorithm and gives it a little twist, and suddenly everybody is being fed all of this hate stuff against Donald Trump, because that's what the algorithm is tunable to do.
Yeah, and that's exactly what was done in the opposite to help Donald Trump get elected. This is the power of a number of these billionaires in terms of the influence they can hold, well, they do hold these days. You don't have to be unbelievably outspoken like Elon Musk is. There are lots of other billionaires out there as well, massively influenced, and they have throughout history in other kind of media forms. But I'd love to just leave it with, obviously, my favourite thing of today, really, in terms of the fallout from this, has been we've now got the reactions, the reactions of the media, the reactions of other people around the world and everything else. My favourite one is Dmitry Medvedev, the former president of Russia and Putin's, one of his besties.
He's still the prime minister, isn't he?
I think he is. I think he might still be the prime minister. I'm not sure. Right. But he posted on Twitter, I won't do an accent. I was thinking about it then, but I'm not going to do an accent. We are ready to facilitate the conclusion of a peace deal between D and E for a reasonable fee and to accept Starlink shares as payment. Don't fight, guys.
And he's doing that in response to, there were several memes being done, right, where various people were offering to act and mediate. It's just bonkers. It's absolutely crazy.
It's incredible. It will go on, and I mean, look, it created an element of entertainment, but there's been other entertaining things in the news in the last 24 hours as well, haven't there? There've been other political shenanigans going on.
Yeah. Well, so the joy of doing emergency podcast is it's constantly changing. So like the Elon stuff, by the time we actually get this edited and out, it's probably going to be out of date. The other one that's also got the potential to also be out of date is the war within Reform UK.
Yeah, I mean, we've said this, right? We've said this. So for those of you who don't know, the chairman of Reform resigned yesterday, as it was Thursday. But we were talking about some of this a good few weeks ago about whether Reform could truly win a general election, whether they could. And we all both certainly agree that they can, but that its biggest threat is probably itself. And the fact that the infighting, which is inevitable in these parties that suddenly get big, the fact that Farage is not a man who likes to share power or share the spotlight, it just felt like this kind of thing was going to happen already. And so he resigned yesterday. His reasoning was very much around, or his official reasoning was very much around, he no longer wanted to devote his time. He no longer felt it was necessary for him to devote his time to getting Reform elected. He feels like he's moved on, that kind of thing. It was a very kind of bland statement. Underneath what everyone is saying is that it was actually much more linked to Prime Minister's questions on Wednesday when Reform's brand new MP who won by 6 votes, was it the other
yes,
a few weeks ago, stood up to ask a question. Bear in mind, PMQs is always very, it's always been a political theatre. It's but stood up and asked the most random question that I don't think anyone really saw coming, which was, are you going to follow are you Prime Minister going to follow the what other countries have done in Europe, and listed a few countries, and ban the burqa, which is such a dog whistle kind of action. It's but because it's quite controversial because it's been spoken in the House of Commons, and that is such a strange question to ask. And most of what people are saying, people in there are saying that this was like the final straw, for the chairman who's now stepped away.
Well, he immediately, basically, people tagged him on it. And he's there. Sorry, I was just checking some of the bits, because while you were talking, I'm like, let's just check this. So he called her question dumb, right? Yeah. Because it's not party policy. But he also said, I don't know why she's asked that. It isn't party policy, but I'm too busy doing UK Doge to actually be involved in this. And people are immediately there going, well, hang on a second, because a lot of people in the party probably want that to be policy. And obviously they look at you and think, well, hang on. So there was loads and loads of things where, again, they're using, with respect to it, Zia is part of his middle name. Right? They're not using Mohammed, which is his first name. He doesn't use it, and that's absolutely fine. But people then on Twitter going to town on the fact that he's called Mohammed, right? And that obviously he's... So it's just... The abuse is awful, right? And it's a real issue with, this part of the social media market. But the bit that blew my mind was literally that same day, he's tweeting, and I'm going to carry on calling it tweeting. He is tweeting about UK Doge and the amazing thing that the reform team have found, and this massive scandal that they had discovered in Kent County Council. And Kent County Council, if you recall, one of the councils that reform took over control of. So they had no councillors until the recent local elections, and now they are in control of Kent County Council and Lancashire and various other ones. So he's talking about, we've gone and we've found this, and it was basically that we found a £375 million recruitment contract. And this is ridiculous and outrageous. And how on earth can Kent County Council be spending £5 million on recruitment? And of course, all of the usual suspects out there who know nothing, right? And that's not a criticism of them. It's just an observation. I know nothing about brain surgery other than I shouldn't be doing it, right? We all know nothing about various things, but like people who don't understand about how these things work. And they're saying, well, hang on a second, this is an outrage. And immediately, of course, again on Twitter, talking about it must be corruption. It's got to be this. It's a waste of money and so on. But then you do a little bit of digging into it. So they're the contract, and he posts a link to the contract. And then you find out that it's a framework contract, and it's a framework contract which is open to all councils in England, all. So what they're doing is they're trying to negotiate a recruitment contract centrally across the whole of local government. And the idea is that if you need to fill in a temp member of cleaning staff in a school, instead of having to go out there and put it to tender and follow all of the regulation stuff, it's already been put to tender, and you can literally just go and stick somebody into that role. So the accusations that were being made by Reform was that this was something like 22% of Kent's entire budget being spent not on employing people, but just on recruiting them, which of course is mind-blowingly dumb, because it's not just Kent County Council, it's the whole of England. And I did a bit of digging, and this is the bit where it gets really juicy. People then start identifying the company who allegedly has won this contract. And they haven't, but they've won the contract in Kent. And it's Connect to Kent with a number 2, right? Well, who's this company? How have they got this money? What are they spending it on? But then you go onto Companies House and do a little bit of digging. And basically, Connect to Kent is a trading name of business that's owned by a business which is owned by, can you guess? Kent County Council. So, okay. Connect to Kent, right, and is a trading name of this business, which is registered at Kent County Council, and that's owned by a broader services business, which again is owned by and registered at Kent County Council and has Kent County Council. So what they've done is they have effectively outsourced recruitment to a company owned by themselves, which gives them legal protections against anything happening and things being said, but also means that basically you ring fence this, and it's not being done by councillors. It's being done by actual HR people who, instead of going out there and paying somebody else to do it, the council's saving money. So Reform are attacking no corruption because it's actually been outsourced to stop corruption, and no waste of money because it's been put like this to save money, right? And all of their people are going on about, well, you've got to identify who these people are so we can send them to jail. And it's like, these people would be the councillors of Kent County Council, which, by the way, now are your people. They are absolute weapons grade idiots.
But this is a good example, again, a good example of a party that is not vetting because it can't, vetting the people that it's selecting to the level that, say, a Conservative Party, a Labour Party, a Liberal Democrats. And look, and there's vetting issues in those parties as well. Mistakes happen with all parties, but within Reform, they're just like, we need bodies. We need bodies to stand right now, and they're not really doing the checks, and they're ending up with people with zero knowledge or experience in the things that they are needed to do. I mean, Kent County Council, it's a multi-million pound.
Oh, it's way beyond that. It's enormous.
Hundreds. Yeah, I mean, it's a huge budget that they are now in charge of. And when you start to look at what, unfortunately, populists do, is that they go in with they don't go in with a fine-tooth comb and go, oh, let's investigate, let's put a committee together, let's look at this and let's try and see where we can do. No, they just go in with a sledgehammer and say, we're going to smash this, we're going to fix this, we're going to drain the swamp, we're going to do all these things. But the problem is, you have to be detail conscious, otherwise you'll break everything and services will stop running, which is what I expect to next happen within Kent County Council.
There's a load of people who are now expecting, and they're genuinely demanding, that he's now going to save the £350 million.
I mean, to be fair, while they may be expecting it now, I'm sure they can. What's that nice business term? I'm sure they can pivot away from this because I mean, they did with the hundreds of millions that were going to be saved in the NHS with Brexit. So it's like, we can, they can move away from that. But I think the problem is they are still in power and they have to deliver. And
this becomes the hard bit now, is that the reality is, and look, I've made this point before, but I'm going to say it again, with council funding as perilous as it is, it almost doesn't matter who you elect. Okay, elect utter morons, and it's not going to go quite as smoothly as elsewhere. But look, you could look at the experienced councillors who, as an example, Woking. They ran Woking Council and borrowed all of this money against property and basically made themselves bankrupt. And there's been quite a few other examples where experienced councillors have done the stupid, where the council officers aren't stopping them and, hey, presto, you're bankrupt. But you can't go out there telling people there's a massive scandal and vote for us and we're going to find it. And then you go and then you find this thing. And, look, they didn't find scandal in Kent. They found accountancy, right? Moving money from there to there, because they're like, well, who makes all of the profits from this deal? That would be Kent County Council.
Yeah, which is what you want ultimately, because profit is good in those instances. But again, I mean, look, and all councils have weak points. They all have, there are weak councillors all over the country. Absolutely. I think what is so frightening here is because of the sheer scale of the change. So Reform went from 0 councillors to having pretty much all the councillors in Kent, and so they have total control of that council with no opposition, no anything. They can just go and do.
They've got opposition, but it's just that you're putting people who don't know anything in charge.
Can't really do a lot, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah, we will continue to watch and see with it.
But again, right, it's not. This isn't anything against. Right, I want to make it very clear. I think we're not criticising or putting down or sneering at people who support Reform. It's not that, because the people who've been made angry about this are. I don't want to say low information, because it makes that sounds negative. It's just that they don't know or care how this thing's run. Yeah. All of the information they've got has been fed to them by deliberate act of sabotage by people like Reform UK. Right? It's weaponized ignorance.
No, absolutely. Look, and it's the same as when we were talking about Elon Musk fiddling with Twitter to make it, to make it push all of the pro-Trump stuff prior to the election and the anti-Biden stuff. It's the same concept. And ultimately, it's not about, look, who you choose to vote for is your democratic right. You choose to, but ultimately, it's very hard to choose who to vote for often, because the information is so. It's not that it's hidden from people, but it's quite hard to actually work through. It's like you've just explained that situation. It took you a good few minutes to explain that situation. Most people are being fed very short snippets of information by reform, which is, again, your classic slogan
They're
stuff.
all corrupt, is all the people are being told. They're all corrupt.
They're all
They're
corrupt.
stealing your money.
Again, I always bring Donald Trump into all this because his approach, because it has been copied, right? It's been copied that's all that's happening. I mean, literally having things called Doge and DEI and stuff like that is a copy from the United States. But the drain the swamp and all, take back control, all that kind of stuff is very,
Let's just take a step back from that, though, and go to what you were just saying about it's difficult to actually discern the right information. Because to wrap this episode up, we've got to touch on yesterday's Scottish parliamentary by-election in Hamilton, where Labour took the seat. So it was an SNP. It was an SNP seat, and basically it was the SNP saying you have to vote for us, because if you don't vote for us, then you're going to get Reform, because Reform were on the way up. And actually Reform was saying, hey, we don't think we can win this seat. And they've been saying that fairly consistently. Everyone said, of course they're going to win. Reform were like, we don't think we can win this seat. They said the opposite in Runcorn and Ellesmere. They were like, yeah, absolutely, we want to win this. But the SNP saying, you have to vote for us. And literally, the Daily Record, which is, a Scottish tabloid newspaper, which is broadly pro-Labour, you've got John Swinney, the leader of the SNP, on the front saying, you have to vote for me or you get Reform. And then spread inside and then more stuff. And criticism being made widely about the Labour candidate isn't out there publicly campaigning the way that the SNP guys are, and isn't doing all of this. And yet you get to the result last night. Labour win, and okay, so the SNP came second, but Reform are in third, but the SNP got nowhere near it. And the thing that gets me there is, right, there's two bits. The first one is that all of the allegations that Labour are finished in Scotland, well, I'm not sure that they are, right, because they've just like, you're taking this seat. And they did so with targeting of previous voters and pledges. So it's back to if you've got data, and they won the seat in the general election for Westminster, if you've got data, that is worth far more than lots of gobby publicity stuff, which is what the SNP had. They haven't got, the SNP are really short of resources, and they're bussing all these people in, but they're short of resources. But my second take is that however much the SNP think that, we are the last bastion of Scotland and Scottishness or whatever, they keep losing. It doesn't matter how they change leaders or what they say. Ultimately, it comes back down to everything's brilliant in Scotland because of us, and if there's anything that you don't like and think's bad, it's because of the English. Well, it just doesn't work anymore. And we get this after every single time in recent elections. They're just getting absolutely hammered. And it's great.
Yeah, no, exactly. And look, I mean, their decline is for me, it's mirroring to a certain extent the decline of the Tory party right now. In that, the SNP, and again, SNP's rise is actually not that dissimilar to Reform's rise, right? It didn't come from nowhere because it had existed for a long time, but it was very small, and then it suddenly exploded onto the scene by winning power in Scotland and also winning pretty much all the Westminster seats as well, and went from there. But now that decline has come because they've been in government, they've been in power, they're clearly not popular anymore because there are things that they have done which I would argue have been good. There are things they have done that have not been so good, like all governments. But ultimately, the tide has turned. We had a situation where Labour were very unpopular in Scotland. The Tories were unpopular for a generation in Scotland. They have fought back. The Lib Dems obviously had a big problem. They fought back. And now Reform have stepped in. And the SNP, they've been used to just having this, that nation to itself almost. And now they don't. And I mean, look, ultimately, I've got to at least mention that it's it's a very positive moment for me as a Labour supporter because because I did not see that one coming. I'm not even sure they saw it coming to a certain extent.
I've read a few things actually saying that they were actually pretty confident, but they weren't talking it up because there's an SNP Reform fight going on and let them get on with it.
And I think there's a certain amount of, obviously, Scottish Labour is different from English Labour. The way in which they're operating up there, they've got a really, really great ground game there as well in terms of how they approach, like you were talking about, who they were targeting. But this is a really good example for me of the more established parties, when they get their stuff together, they are very good because they have the data, and if they got good people on the ground, they can pull this kind of stuff off. It does give me a small inkling of hope for the future because Labour were very good at this at the last general election.
Yes.
How else do you explain the number of seats they won on the percentage that they got? It was very targeted.
And I was going to say, actually, that is actually, I think, a nice cul-de-sac to park ourselves up in, because, right, if we're here talking about broadly the threat of reform and how we can combat it, and we need significant changes. Even if you end up with the mainstream parties starting to offer, okay, we've got some solutions, they're still going to have to work really hard to combat populism, because populism's easy just to go lie, smear, whatever, simplistic. As you said, trying to explain reality takes far too long for a lot of people. So you're back into conversations on the doorstep and the ground game. And if you've got the data, then you can chip away at the, I don't want to say lies, but it's lies that's put out there.
No, 100%. But look, it's been an interesting. We live in interesting times. I would argue the last 24 hours have been some of the most interesting in recent times. It's been incredibly entertaining for those of us who are probably not in the centre of it. I've run out of popcorn. So if anything does explode overnight, I am struggling.
Absolutely. And as we wrap this up now, right, I'll go back to following what's going on in America with Trump versus Musk. And who knows? I mean, like maybe they could have made up by the time we get this out. Hopefully not, because it'll make us actually still have something worth watching. But you never know. But I'm certainly going to be glued to it.
Yeah, me too. And I think on that note, we will go off and check to see if anything else has exploded in the world. But as always, like, subscribe, go back and watch our old videos as well. We're gonna do some more on these. We do promise we are going to get onto the things that we're going to actually fix if we were given the keys of power.
We made a start.
We've got loads of ideas on this, and we will definitely start talking about that on a future ones, assuming nothing else explodes in the next few days, which it probably will.
We look, for anyone who likes politics, and if you're here, you obviously do, and if you're at the end of this video, you definitely do. So great. But for anyone who likes politics, you've just got to rejoice in how crazy a time that we live in. It's interesting, and there's threat, but hey, at least there's you've got to take the entertainment value of some of it. I think you have to.
To all the people who say that politics is boring, it's not. It's incredibly good fun, and there we go. But anyway, thank you as always, Ian, and we will see you all again soon.
We will see you then.